Dark clouds have formed over the Catholic Church in Europe. Over the past 5 months, a sexual abuse scandal once seen as limited to the United States has widened. Hundreds of victims in over 10 European countries have come forward with similar stories of victimization by the clergy. The latest allegations have shaken the Church's very foundation. Many parishioners say their faith in the institution has also wavered. How the Church responds to the new allegations and addresses the doubts of worshippers will go a long way toward determining its future.
It took me 35 years to talk about it. The speech center in my brain didn't function, and I had to stand in front of the mirror and had to use my fingers to move my lips. It didn't work. I had to practice for 1 year until I could actually say it. I was sexually abused.
One of the most stunning revelations about the clergy abuse started here, at an elite Catholic school in the heart of Berlin. Behind these gates, students were reportedly abused by 2 priests on staff in the 1970s and 1980s. Since Father Mertis went public with the allegations, 63 students have come forward to say they were victims. None wanted to speak publicly. The school's revelation of abuse touched off a wave of media coverage. Soon, alleged victims, some 250 of them from across Germany, Austria, Ireland, and the Netherlands, and other European countries, stepped forward claiming sexual abuse at the hands of priests years ago. While most also chose to remain anonymous, some, like Norbert Denef of Scharbeutz in northern Germany, say it's time to break the silence and put a face on the victims. His story and his battle with the Catholic Church, he hopes will set an example that others will follow to bring the problem to light, and maybe put an end to it.
I was 10 years old and happy to finally be an altar boy. On this picture, that was the time I went to my first communion, and after that it happened. Then he took me with him to his flat. He locked the door, sat down in an armchair, and then he pulled me to his lap and opened my pants. This all went on for 6 years. 6 years! You don't feel the pain. You don't feel anything. Everything is dead. Dead. You let everything just happen to you. This is the murder of the soul.
When Mr. Denef could finally speak about the abuse, it was too late to take the perpetrators to court. In Germany, the statute of limitations on sexual abuse cases runs out 20 years after the victim's 18th birthday. And many victims of sexual abuse seem to share Mr. Denef's fate. Most of the cases that have been reported recently happened over 20 years ago. Mr. Denef says it's time to get rid of that statute of limitations for these crimes.
We want to break the silence, and the statute of limitations is part of that, for abuses that happened long ago. We are the people. We can change any law.
Still, even without a legal case, Mr. Denef notified the Catholic Church, and they investigated.
I was very lucky, and I got a written note saying that both perpetrators confessed in the presence of an attorney. I have that in writing.
The bishop offered Norbert a deal. For 25,000 euros, he'd have to keep silent about the abuse forever. But Norbert didn't want to be silenced anymore. He wanted to publicly speak about the abuse and asked the Pope for help. 6 months later, he received a letter in the mail from the Vatican.
From the State Secretary, First Section, General Affairs, with the number. I have my own number. The Pope wrote to me personally. Pope John Paul II includes your concerns into his prayers and encourages you to seek God's help for healing and to receive the power to forgive. I was supposed to forgive? That was the answer to my cry for help? Around me, it got darker and darker, and I wanted to kill myself. I even attempted suicide.
But a will to live awoke in Norbert, and he fought the Catholic Church to take out the silence clause. Since then, he's speaking publicly about the issue, and he's trying to organize the victims.
We victims are forming a network, and we will represent ourselves. We don't want to be represented anymore. This is new.
This latest scandal even threatens to reach into the Vatican and touch Pope Benedict XVI himself. Before becoming Pope, Josef Ratzinger was the Archbishop in the Archdiocese of Munich at the time when a priest was transferred to Munich after allegations of sexual abuse had reached the church. Still, almost immediately upon his arrival, the priest was assigned to do pastoral work. The priest went on to molest other children and was later convicted by a secular court. The Archdiocese of Munich says that the Archbishop Ratzinger knew of the transfer of the priest to Munich and the allegations of sexual abuse against him. But did Archbishop Ratzinger know that the pedophile priest was given pastoral work and had contact with children? The Archdiocese in Munich confirms that Josef Ratzinger knew about the sexual allegations against the priest and the decision to send him to therapy. What he apparently didn't know was the decision of his Vicar General, Monsignor Gruber, to send the priest to perform pastoral work.
We assume that Cardinal Ratzinger did not know about this decision.
The historian Ralf Lutzelschwab also thinks that Archbishop Ratzinger probably didn't know about the decision, but nevertheless wonders if he should have.
Man könnte sich darüber unterhalten, ob eventuell es erlassen.
One could discuss if there should have been decrees that said these delicate matters must be presented to the Archbishop. That obviously didn't happen in Munich. One could accuse them of that.
Ganz offensichtlich nicht geschehen. Und das ist ihm vielleicht tatsächlich zum Vorwurf zu machen.
And what does Pope Benedict, former Archbishop of Munich, say to the allegations? Pope Benedict personally has not said anything about the allegations against himself. Mr. Lutzelschwab thinks that the Catholic Church's failure to get a hold of the scandal early might take a toll.
Es ist die Angst
There is the fear in the Catholic Church that they won't be considered a moral authority anymore in Germany. And that risk is real.
Tatsächlich.
Protesters in Europe are also questioning the moral authority of the Catholic Church. There were small demonstrations in Berlin, in Ireland, and in front of the Vatican. Sigrid Behm, a 52-year-old mother of four from Franken, a region in the north of Bavaria, takes her outrage to the next level. Upset about the recent abuse scandal, she began picketing in front of Catholic churches like this one in the city of Fulda. She recently left the church.
They covered it up for years, from one diocese into another one.
As an outsider, I get the impression that the church wants to settle it internally.
Yes, only still.
At risk in the church's handling of the scandal is far more than its moral authority. For centuries, as a state religion in numerous countries across Europe, the church has enjoyed privileged status. In modern-day Germany, it benefits from a unique tithing system that shores up its financial health in Europe's biggest economy.
Die Kirchensteuerzahlungen in Deutschland werden zusammen mit der
In Germany, church tax payments are paid with your income tax, a certain percent to the church. That is extremely comfortable for the church, since it doesn't depend on voluntary donation from believers, like in other countries.
Zuwendungen ihrer Gläubigen angewiesen ist, wie das in anderen Ländern der Fall ist.
Though the German state isn't likely to pull the plug on tithing, the church is likely to face heightened federal scrutiny, hand in hand with how it addresses victims' concerns and polices itself going forward. More importantly, the size of its coffers is directly tied to the number of church members being tithed. When their numbers drop, so does what it gets from the state and the collection plate.
The Catholic Church's battered reputation leads to more church secessions and translates to less money for them. If somebody leaves the church, the money is gone for the Catholic Church.
At the Kreisverwaltungsamt in Munich, the state agency responsible for processing the church secessions, it turns out that there might be something to what Ms. Mosen has to say.
I am here because I want to leave the church. I wanted to do it for a long time, and I am doing it now, because of the abuse cases and how the church covers them up.
We usually have 500 to 900 secessions from the church every month. In March, we had a record number.
Nearly 1,700 members left the registers of the Catholic Church in Munich in March alone. The Archdiocese of Munich says it is painfully aware of the crisis it's facing.
We want to regain credibility through a process of debunking and transparency. There's no alternative. We want to take a strong line, and we say zero tolerance for sexual abuse. That means we will act consequently, investigate, and uncover. We also want to contact and talk to the victims and help them.
And in Vatican City, while sometimes oblique with his comments, Pope Benedict appears to be stepping up.
As a sign of my deep concern, I have written a pastoral letter dealing with this painful situation. I ask all of you to read it for yourselves with an open heart and in a spirit of faith. My hope is that it will help in the process of repentance, healing, and renewal.
In a letter to Irish congregants in March, the Pope wrote that,
"It is understandable that you find it hard to forgive or be reconciled with the Church. In her name, I openly express the shame and remorse that we all feel."
And then in May, in his clearest statement on the abuse scandal yet, Pope Benedict spoke about the sin within the Church. He said the Church had to learn forgiveness on the one hand, but also the need for justice. That's winning over some skeptics, like Ralf Lutzer-Schwab.
One writes pastoral letters, which are clearly admissions of guilt. Nothing is being swept under the rug anymore.
But others want deeper, more fundamental accountability and reform.
Um die Integrität der katholischen Kirche wiederherzustellen, wäre es schon sehr sinnvoll.
To regain the integrity of the Catholic Church, it would be more important that they would not only repeat over and over again that they feel sorry for the abuse cases and accept the guilt. They need to accept the responsibility as well.
Das ganz verabscheuen.
There's a difference between guilt and responsibility. Accepting responsibility means that perpetrators must be immediately suspended and barred from interacting with children.
Mit sofortiger Maßnahme aus der
Accepting responsibility means that even at the slightest suspicion, the church has to file a criminal complaint with the district attorney's office.
Geringsten Verdachtsfall eine Anzeige erfolgt bei der Staatsanwaltschaft. Wieso soll eine Kirche?
Why should an internal church commission investigate? They have no expertise.
Wir haben dafür einen sehr guten
We have a good justice and police system. They're independent.
wirtschaftliches System. Die sollen das machen. Die sind auch unabhängig.
Ultimately, the loss of faith might be in the institution, not with God.
The Catholic Church obviously made mistakes, but that has nothing to do with faith. That is a human problem. Faith, I believe in faith.
Ich stehe zum Glauben.